everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be walking you through every single book I have read in 2026 so far. I haven't been reading as much as usual this year. I've definitely noticed that I've been in a slump probably since the end of 2025, and I've been trying to get back on top of my reading, but I'm just in a slump. I'm really struggling, guys. Nothing is breaking me out of it. So I'm reading less per month this year than I was last year, and that was less than what I read the year before, so it's just slowly dwindling down. I'm trying not to force it, so I'm just going at the pace that feels right for me. But it means that when I've sat down to film my monthly reading wrap-ups, I've spent a minute going, I only have 4 books to talk about. Is that worthy of a YouTube video, or do we wait till I've got a few more? So I've decided to do this quarterly for now. If my reading does pick up throughout the rest of the year, I might bring these back monthly. So this is everything I've read in January, February and March. I'm going to be telling you about how I felt about every single one of these books, letting you know my favourite from each month as we go. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed and make sure you've dropped a like on this video. It really helps me out. And as you're watching this, let me know down in the comments what your favourite read of 2026 is so far. But without further ado, let's dive into the books. I started the year with some dark fantasy romance, and that was the Court of Ravens duet by Liv Zander. I filmed a video last year about how I was trying to find more indie authors, because a lot of the indie authors I have loved over the years are now traditionally published, and I still love and recommend those books, but I felt like I was just running low on the ground for indie author recommendations, so I was determined to find some new ones. So I picked these up last year. I was especially surprised when they had like printed edges, and I really enjoyed these. I had a good time with this duet. This is a little bit darker than I was anticipating. That was on me. I didn't really go and fully check how dark this was going to be. I saw dark romantasy and just dove in. I was absolutely fine with these. I can generally read quite dark. I couldn't put these down. Like, these were definitely one of the fastest things I've read all year. Like, just super page turning, super addictive. And I got emotionally connected to some of these characters in a way I wasn't expecting. Booktube broke my heart. I did not see this coming. If you're a fan of dark fantasy romance, I would absolutely recommend these to you. If you are newer to dark romance, maybe check the trigger warning, see if this is your cup of tea. This felt quite gothic as well. It wasn't just dark in terms of its thematic content, but also dark just atmospherically. Really enjoyed the fantasy world. This idea of these raven shifters and the way that the raven shifting worked was genius. I remember seeing these and being like, am I going to be attracted to raven shifters? And I am. I gave this duology a solid 4 stars. I think if this is your kind of genre, this is your kind of thing, you will really enjoy these ones. I appreciate the fact it was just 2 books. I've been tackling a lot of big series recently, so it's quite nice just to have a couple of books to read and then the story was finished. And just overall, this was exactly what I was looking for at the time. It was fast paced, it was energetic, it was like gothic, dark, moody, all the kind of things I love in my fantasy. I probably would have given this a higher rating if I was more in with the romance. I didn't really feel connected to the romance within this plot for some time. It took me a while to get into, but I did like where it ended up. I know Liv Zander has some other books that people have been recommended to me. I can't remember what it's called. It's like the original covers of these have got a guy on them, and then there's another duology that looks similar, but I don't think they're connected. So I've got my eye on that one too. So not my favourite thing I read in January, but certainly a strong start to the year, and I would absolutely recommend these if this sounds like your kind of thing. I then read what would become my book of the month, and this is Half City by Kate Golden. I've mentioned this in quite a few videos now, so depending where I upload this one, you might have seen me talk about this. If you have, sorry, I'm probably going to repeat myself. This was fantastic. This was like the spicy adult Shadowhunter series of my dreams. This is urban fantasy with demon murdering, dagger wielding, dark academia vibes, and I had a feeling I was going to love this one. I actually read this one as a proof copy. So this book technically released in Feb, but I managed to read it a little bit early in Jan. I had a feeling I was going to love this because I love the author's other fantasy series, the Sacred Stone series, so much. This one I definitely prefer. It's going to be a trilogy, and the way this book ended, I need book 2 immediately. Kate, I hope you're writing or editing or doing something with this. This one was a 5-star read for me. It was super duper action packed. Kind of had Buffy vibes, kind of had Shadowhunter vibes, but like bit darker, bit more gothic, bit more moody. Loved the academy setting in this, and kind of like the training montages and the trials and the competitions and the classes that they all had. The mystery running throughout this really hooked me in. What is happening to these students? Where are they going? And who is doing it? And then the ending threw me through a loop. I could kind of see it coming. I have heard if you're going to listen to the audiobook of this, the ending might spoil some of the plot of book 2, just the audiobook specifically, so take that risk at your own risk, I guess. I had a fantastic time with this, and then the Fairy Loot edition came, which is the most beautiful copy of a book I've seen in a long time. It was these two. It was these 2 fools. I am so in love with them. If you want leather-clad, dagger-wielding female main characters in a dark academia setting slaying demons, this is a book for you. You were 5 stars. Half City was my book of January. And then at the end of January, I started a series that's been on my TBR for the longest time, and that was Lady of Darkness and Lady of Shadows by Melissa K. Roharick. This is the Lady of Darkness series. I have been putting this off for the longest time. I think whilst I've been waiting for it to be traditionally published in the UK to get all 5 books out in their new traditionally published versions. Even though I had all the ebooks of this, I've got various editions of it on my shelves now. I had been told that if I was a fan of Throne of Glass, which I am, that this would absolutely be up my alley. And it definitely was. I've heard some criticism online that this feels too similar to Throne of Glass. I definitely wouldn't agree with that. I think these are entirely separate worlds, entirely separate plot lines. They do have some similarities, largely in our female main character being a bit of a shadowy assassin type, but I think pretty much everything else felt so incredibly different, and I like assassin-y types, so I read a lot of shadowy assassin-y type books. So maybe other people might have thought it was too similar to Throne of Glass, I didn't, but I've read lots kind of within this subgenre. I had a good time with these. Book 1 was an introduction to this series. So much happens in this. I made the mistake, again, of listening to the audiobook on my drive to work, and there is a scene towards the end of this book, I want to say around the 80% mark, that had me sobbing in my car, mascara running down my face as I am parking up at the office. This is definitely a little darker than Throne of Glass, and this one is published as adult, whereas I think some of the Throne of Glass books are published as YA, so there is a little bit of difference here. The spice is dialed up, the focus on the romantic plot from the first book is dialed up. I think if you like your more high epic fantasy romance with like unreliable narrators, you maybe don't know exactly what's happening all the time, your bigger world feeling and like big battles and wars, intricate magic systems, and like a ton of side characters, a ton of side stories to follow. If you really want to get your claws into something and spend a lot of time with it and learn a lot about the world and like really get into the depths of the story and the politics and all of that kind of good stuff, this is a great one for you. I feel like for some people this might have too much exposition, but as somebody who loves to get into the detail of these fantasy worlds, I ate this up. Book 1 was easily a 5 star for me. I can't remember what I rated book 2. Most of the books in the series I did end up rating 4 or 5 stars, and it's kind of averaging out at a 4.5 star series for me. One of my favourites. Definitely happy that I've picked up these special editions at a Polycon, which I'll be showing you when I get home with my Polycon haul. So now moving on to February, I bet you can guess what I started the month with. If you guessed book 3, 4 and 5 in the Lady of Darkness series, you would be correct. I read the series back to back to back to back to back. Couldn't put it down. It's been a while since I've been fully immersed in a fantasy world like this, and I really feel like this year, like last year, fantasy is going to be my go-to genre. Even though I've been slumping, so many people have said to me like, why don't you pick up a cozy romance? Why don't you pick up something a little bit lighter? And I have throughout the year. You'll see that with the rest of the things I've read throughout Feb and March. But honestly, the books I'm actually being drawn the most to pick up and actually like get through are the higher fantasy feeling ones, the ones that have got all the fantasy drama happening, which is so unusual. Like a few years ago, if I was struggling with a fantasy series, I'd take a break, I'd read a bit of monster romance, I'd take a break, I'd read a nice contemporary. This year, it feels like fantasy books are kind of being my break, so I really relished in reading the series back to back. I won't bang on about these too much more because obviously I captured a lot of my thoughts on this series when I spoke about book 1 and 2, which I read in January. I really liked all of these. I thought this was a fantastic series. I'm definitely going to be diving into, the author has another series, the Legacy series, which is a spin-off from this, and then they've just released a new one called Tortured Souls, which is the first book in the Avon Leia series. So I will be diving into those this year, I think, as well. I'm glad I read this one first. I think that's the recommended reading order usually. Just before I finish wrapping up talking about the Lady of Darkness series, I did also read 2 novellas from the world, my favourite of which was The Reaper. I read this one between books 4 and 5. It does follow a side character and a bit of his backstory. This was genuinely heartbreaking. Like the whole series tore my heart out, stamped on it a bit, and then like shoved it back into a gaping hole that it left. This one though, oh my god, this one hurt. This one really hurt. It was good though. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very interesting context to have to understand this character's actions in like book 4 and book 5. And then the final one, Unrelenting Winds. This is kind of a prequel. I cannot remember this one a whole bunch. This one didn't stick with me too much. I think most of this is set before the events of Lady of Darkness. Some of it may be into the series. I don't think any of it's set after, but I can't remember much of this, I won't lie. This one follows 2 characters which were just not 2 side characters I felt personally connected with, so I've kind of blanked this from my memory. But again, I think if you've loved the world, you've loved the series, diving into this is a very short novella, and getting a bit more of that context around 2 characters is useful. I read this straight after book 5 though, and my mind was still reeling, and I was kind of like, okay, great, but I kind of want to go back to what was happening in the other one, you know? So these were good. I definitely think The Reaper's worth a read. This one I think is worth a read. I really would recommend reading it. I clearly don't remember much about it, which but it wasn't bad. I do remember giving this one 3 stars, I think, so it was fine. It wasn't that there was anything wrong with it, it's just not really stuck with me. This one did, however. Then I moved on to a read of one of my most anticipated releases of the year. This is the Gravewood. This is a new acquisition from Wayward. It is by Kelly Andrew. This is a YA vampire dystopian urban fantasy kind of mix. This one definitely crossed into like a couple of different genres that I'm absolutely loving at the moment. This did feel quite cheesy and teeny, but in a way that I ate up. I rated this really highly. I love a vampire story. This one felt very fresh, very new, having this kind of, not necessarily end of the world, but slightly dystopian-esque turn on it, I think made this feel super unique. I loved our kind of three main characters and their complications and conflicts throughout the story. Nobody in this book is perfect, and like, it's just the way that people's flaws were explored was so well done. If you liked Twilight, this is nothing like it, but I do think you would enjoy this one too. I have just realised there's vampire fangs on the cover. Am I silly? Like, how have I not realised that? Even though this one is a YA, I would recommend it for a slightly older YA audience. It certainly had some like steam and tension and heat, even though there was no explicit spice. Also, this one was treading a little bit darker than I was expecting it to as well. One of the characters' backstory, and then somebody we meet from his backstory and we learn more about him through that character, really went in like a bit of a dark, twisted direction I wasn't quite expecting. Although having said that, the female main character is also in a bit of a dark and twisted situation. It was YA, but it was dark, and it was really jam-packed with romance. I couldn't put this down. This book is out in April, so when you're watching this, the book is potentially already out or about to come out. And I feel like this story would have stood on its own without the vampires, like as a dystopian fantasy, but actually the addition of the vampires, so juicy, so tasty, and spoke to my like paranormal, supernatural romance loving heart. This book has a female main character who uses hearing aids as well. A lot of the plot is based around how she has to make a bargain with a vampire because she can't supply batteries anymore in this world for her hearing aids. So in case you're looking for something with that type of representation, this could be a good pick for you as well. But I had a good time with the Gravewood. It was exactly what I was hoping it would be. It absolutely met my expectations. It didn't blow me away. I wasn't like mega exceeded of my expectations, but it met them, and I had fairly high expectations for this going in. The Gravewood could have been my book of February. However, I then read the next book and my life was so completely changed that nothing was going to stand up to this. The book is Starside by Alex Aster. I am sure by now you have seen me bang on about this. If you're completely new here, this is my book of the year. I would put money on the fact that when we get to December and I'm wrapping up my book of the year, it would be Starside by Alex Aster. I devoured this. I devoured this, but equally didn't want this to end. Like, I read it quite slowly. Looking back at it, it took me a while to get through, but oh my god, I just wanted to linger in this world. I just wanted to be here with these characters. I already want to go back in and reread this, and it's only been like 3 or 4 weeks. This felt very, very new. I haven't read any Alex Aster before, so I can't compare how similar this feels to Lightlark because I don't know, I haven't read those books. This to me had elements of Quicksilver and elements of Shield of Sparrows, which are two of my favourite fantasy romances at the moment, but equally it was nothing like either of those books. Like, this was such its own thing, and I had never read anything by Alex Aster and I was blown away. I fell in love with the writing style. This one is an adult fantasy romance. It is enemies to enemies to enemies to mortal enemies to lovers to enemies to mortal enemies again. Like, it just, I couldn't get enough of these two. This whole world, honestly, this book was made for me. I really feel like it was. Has every single one of my favourite tropes, except like swap the one bed trope for the one cave trope. It had deadly trials and competitions. It had this like Hunger Games-esque style race to a finish line kind of thing. It is a brutal and gritty and darker toned world, which you know I love. It explored lots of different types of friendships. It had some found family in here that I loved. It had threats around every corner, not from the other candidates, but from the world around them. The area the character grows up in, very dangerous. The competition she's entering, very dangerous. The random creatures in the world of Starside, when they do cross over into that world, very dangerous. The Fae in the world of Starside, mega dangerous. The love interest, potentially the most dangerous of them all. The way she feels about him, dangerous. Like, the level of threat, my heart was pounding in this book. She is like running away from something and I'm running with her. I'm like, God, I hope you make it. I know there's like another 300 pages to go, but I hope you make it. I don't know how this book sucked me in so much, but it just did. I was addicted to this. I'm still thinking about it. Every time I see artwork of these two pop up on my Instagram feed, I lose my mind. I hope you can tell how excited I am by this one, just by how I'm struggling to formulate words. Like, I just love this. I think it's fantastic. If you haven't got Starside, please, 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 if you take one thing away from this video, there's a couple of things I'd recommend you take away from this video, but if you take one thing, Let It Be Starside by Alex Astor. That was it for me in February, so my book of Feb was Starside. Let's move on to March. I'm actually a big liar who likes to lie. That is not everything for February. I actually read those 6 Amazon Valentine's Day novellas in February as well. I'll put some pictures of them up here. I can't believe I forgot about these. These were all quite fun. I had a good time with all of these. It was called The Improbable Meet Cute Second Chance Romance Collection, I believe. I won't talk about all of these in depth. My favourite 2 were definitely the Christina Lauren and the Catherine Cowles one. I usually really enjoy Novessa Allen, and I did enjoy the Novessa Allen one here, but I remember being really intense for the fact it was like 80 pages. It was wild and crazy, and to be honest, like a pretty good time. But my favourite 2 definitely have to be Christina Lauren and Catherine Cowles, I think in that order as well. I didn't really vibe at all with the Julie Soto or the Trelina Pucci ones. I'm not entirely sure why. I've actually never read any Trelina Pucci, so maybe it's just the writing style didn't vibe with me personally. I have read other Julie Soto. I've never got on with Julie Soto. I just don't think like my reading style and her writing style are a meet cute. You know, they are just separate things. And that is fine. I gave it a go. I did read it. It was not my favourite. And the Hannah Bonham Young one was fine. Again, this was actually my first time reading Hannah Bonham Young. It was okay. I would absolutely read her other stuff, but it's just not anything that stood out in my brain really. So I also read those 6 Valentine's novellas, and I read them all around Valentine's Day because of course I did. Now that is actually everything I read in February. Let's move on to March. As I said, I've really been bouncing between like contemporary romances and the fantasy, it feels like, this year, and that happened with me in March as well. I picked up a series that I've been wanting to read for a really long time actually, and this is the Devil's Backbone series by Tate James. Now, I love Tate James. I love the Madison Kate series. I love the Hades series. I think these are super fun, fast-paced, action-packed, why choose romances. They're some of my go-to why choose contemporary romance recommendations. And then when I heard this one was Dark Academia as well, I was like, fantastic, absolutely sign me up. I don't know where I heard this one was Dark Academia from, but if you go into this with Dark Academia expectations, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed. The books themselves were absolutely a good time. They were fun, they were spicy, they were full of suspense and the thrill, really easy to read, absolute page turners, as I usually find with Tate James. And I read this after I read Starside. I was like, oh my god, there's no way I could pick up any other fantasy book for a bit. I need something else. These did the job. These did exactly what I needed them to do. I didn't quite feel as passionately about these ones as I did about my other Tate James reads, and I thought actually I was going to prefer these to Hades, is particularly my favourite one. I don't know, maybe because I went in with those Dark Academia expectations. It has got an academic setting, but it does have like some hazings, but there's not an element of gothic to this or anything like that. So maybe it is just a case of my expectations were a little bit different. I did have a good time with these. I did read them pretty quickly and they were enjoyable. They're not a series that I think I would reread, but if you're looking for something fun and flirty and spicy, a little bit dark, some taboo romance, these were a pretty enjoyable read. I do recommend probably her other 2 more, but the other thing I will say is this one's a trilogy and the other 2 are a series of 4 books, so if you want something a bit quicker, maybe these ones. I still enjoyed them, don't get me wrong. I just think I just finished Starside and nothing else was going to compare to it, so these kind of got a bit of a rough time because I was reading this going, well, this isn't Starside. Of course it's not Starside. It's not even a fantasy book, you know? But I did have a good time with them, like reflecting back on it. I remember at the time I was reading them and I was like, oh, maybe I'll stop at book 2 and come back to book 3. And I pushed through to read book 3 because I knew if I left it, I probably would never come back. But I don't think that was a fault of the series. I think that was the fault of my brain, like just not being necessarily in the place for these. And I was so surprised. Tate James is usually a 5-star read for me. I'd say these probably sit around that 3.5, 4-star rating. I still had a good time with them. I would still recommend them, but whoever told me Dark Academia was lying to me. After that, I wanted to dive back into something that was fantasy, and I wanted to dive back into something that was going to like take me through the emotional ringer. So I picked up an Amirata by Ava Reid. Now, I did DNF this book. Hold on. I DNF'd the book. I spoke a lot more about why I DNF'd the book. It's largely because there was a trigger in this book that I wasn't aware of going in, that I really struggled to read and I need a bit of prep time, or I just avoid it completely. I've spoken more about this on my TikTok. I'm not going to discuss the fact the book doesn't have trigger warnings other than just to say I think it does, and if you're watching this and you're aware you do have triggers, even if you're usually fine with dark content like I am, I would maybe just go and try and find a list for this one online. The writing style, great. The storyline, great. Phenomenal, fantastic. It was deliciously dark and decadent and gothic and lush and poetic and lyrical and like had so much to say, and I was really enjoying the writing style. I think I DNF'd at 60%. This, if I did finish it, would have been a 5-star read, and I think it is only like that one very specific trigger I have If that wasn't in here, I would have finished this and had a great time. So I feel a little bit unfair. I actually haven't rated this one. I DNF'd it without a rating because I didn't want to rate it too highly because I hadn't finished it, but I didn't want to rate it lowly because it wasn't really a DNF because I wasn't enjoying it, or a DNF because I didn't think it was good, because I did think it was good. I was having a great time, being absolutely emotionally traumatized for most of the book. But this is definitely different. I've seen a lot of people comment on the marketing of this book as like, to me, it's been marketed as like a dark fantasy or a gothic fantasy, and it kind of fits within that. This goes a step further for me. This is kind of horror, and a lot of people are calling it grimdark. I haven't seen it marketed as grimdark. I haven't seen it called grimdark other than by people that have read it. But if that means anything to you, like, take dark fantasy with a spoon of salt, a spoon of salt, a sprig of salt, a pinch of salt, a pinch of salt. If you like dark, like shock, horror, gore, all of the very, very dark trigger warnings, feel free to dive in. If you're not used to reading that genre, or if it's something that you think there could be something in here, please do check warnings, because this, I wish there wasn't a certain trigger in here. It's not a trigger that I encounter a lot in terms of like the chill that this had over my body, and the atmosphere and the setting and the work. Like, this really is a fantastic Ava Reid book. I just wish it had trigger warnings in it. I thought at first it might just be the review copy that didn't, but I don't think the finished copies do either. So if you know this is your cup of tea, all of those things you love, then I do recommend this. I think you would enjoy it. The only reason I can't recommend it with my full chest is because I didn't finish it. And I recommend it with the warning of just go and check some of the trigger warnings lists online to make sure you're not going to put yourself in a weird place by reading this. But in terms of like actual content of the book, the writing, the storytelling, like the power of the visuals, all great, fantastic, incredible. I wish I could have finished this. After finishing an Amirata, I really didn't know where to go next. It left me in a bit of a weird space, like mentally, and I wasn't really keen on picking anything up, and I really didn't know where to go next. I didn't know whether to dive into another fantasy and like try and move on. What I ended up doing was going for a cozy comfort read to heal my soul. I went with And Now Back to You by B.K. Borison. First Time Caller, which is the first book in this series, was one of my favourite romances. In fact, I think it was my favourite romance the year that I read it, and it's still, if you were to ask me my top 5 romances, First Time Caller's in there. I had a good time with this one. I didn't enjoy it quite so much as the first one. I don't know if it's because the first one, I'd never really read this like radio dialing in kind of romance. I don't know, there was something about them not being able to see each other I think that was quite nice. This obviously didn't have this. This is actually 2 different weather reporters. I did enjoy the story. It was sweet but spicy. Both of them were adorable, from Delilah being in like her turtle costume to Jackson overthinking like literally every aspect of his life. Watching these two like shamelessly flirt with each other through the worst snowstorm in history. Incredible stuff. I've liked a lot of the B.K. Borison that I've read, but this series is absolutely my favourite one of all of hers. And this came at a time when I needed it. I feel really bad that I didn't read this. I actually had a proof copy of this, and I've just not been in a contemporary romance space for quite some time. I'm happy that I've found myself back in it, because it meant that I finally caught up and read this. And Your Honour, I love her. She was fantastic. She was not quite as good as First Time Caller in my opinion, but still a really, really enjoyable read. I'd recommend this series actually to anybody who likes a cozy, contemporary, sweet, but very spicy romance, because these two know what they're doing. And this is the Beautiful Works edition. I don't know if they still do these, but I managed to get book 2 and book 1, and they both match with like the couple on the edges. Next up is what I think is going to be my book of March. So I'm filming this on like March 29th, and we've got like a day or 2 left. I have a feeling it's going to be this. I'm mad I put this off. Again, this came out earlier this year. I want to say January. So mad I put this off because this was a great time. I'm talking about We Who Will Die by Stasia Stark. Now, I've read Stasia Stark's, oh my god, what is it called? Stasia Stark's Kingdom of Lies series. I have also read that one, and I enjoyed it, but not so much so that I was like, that's it, Stasia's like an author by author, I'm gonna get everything pre-ordered kind of vibe. After this, that has changed. Oh my god, this was so much more up my alley. I have fallen in love with this thing. I was skeptical going in. I struggle with gladiator style, ancient Rome, Romo-Greco, anything that's like any of that, I struggle with. This, however, I think this and Ember in the Ashes are the only things that are kind of ancient Rome-esque that I vibed with. And boy, did I vibe hard. Again, the fantasies that are really doing it for me this year, and like last year, are the fantasies that have like different types of being in them. This has like centaurs and griffins. The main story is actually around these like gladiator warrior types, which is our female main character, and then also the vampires. This had such a delicious romance in it. I am obsessed with this. And again, like fully action fueled fantasy, like there is battles and fights and assassinations and just things happening all over the place. Vampire bargains and deals and like blood servants and just all of these different elements of vampire fantasy that I love. The stakes were really high on this one. The element of threat, the element of like fear was within me, and I'm obsessed with it. I love it. Where is book 2? I know this only came out 2 months ago, but can we get book 2 like tomorrow? As I said, I enjoyed Stasia Stark's other series. This one blew me out of the water. This has absolutely made me into a die-hard Stasia Stark fan. This is a gorgeous Fairy edition, just in case anyone is wondering if they want to pick it up secondhand. And again, there's something here for me with that like deadly competition and trials. I feel like deadly competitions and trials for me, it's my new enemies to lovers. You know, I love an enemies to lovers. I'm starting to love even more deadly trials and competitions. That is where my heart is going. There is 2 love interests in this one, and like I've read quite a few books recently where there's been a bit of a love triangle or a bit of a 2 interest situation, and I've been able to pick a favourite. I cannot pick. Who are you going to end up with? Both of them? Please let it be both of them. Everybody in this book is lying to you. Everybody's got an agenda. Everyone's keeping secrets. Even our main character. Like delicious, tasty, would have 10 of them. The only reason I say I think this is going to be my book of March is because I've started another book, which I'm going to tell you about and include in this wrap up. And so far, I'm enjoying that one. I do think this is going to be my pick. This is kind of more me. The only reason I'm saying this is probably my book of March is just because I'm currently reading something else, which I will finish before the end of March, and I will show it you in a second. And I'm having a really great time with it, but I just think I can't move past this. So I think this is what is going to get my book of the month when I get to the end of the month. If you haven't read this yet, I know it's on a lot of people's TBRs because it has just come out, and maybe a lot of you got it in your subscription box. I would highly recommend you do so immediately. And finally, the book I'm currently reading, but that I am going to mention, is In Stormy Weather by Chelsea Curto. What is it with like the weather reporting meteorologist romance this year? It just seems to be a theme. This actually came yesterday. I've never read any Chelsea Curto. My friend Laura has been telling me to read Chelsea Curto for at least a year. She's the one that put this on my radar and said that she thought I would like this. This isn't coming out until July, but the proof showed up at my door the other day, and I actually just finished We Who Will Die, and I saw this on my shelf and I was like, you know what, you are the chosen one. This is what I'm going into next. I think because I enjoyed And Now Back to You so much, I want to just sit in that like weather reporting kind of trapped in a storm kind of vibe for a little bit longer. This one also has that like forced proximity to rivals. This one has a little bit more of an academic angle from what I can tell so far. This feels like if And Now Back to You and Ali Hazel Was the Love Hypothesis had a baby, which is how my friend Laura sold it to me, and it's absolutely ringing true so far. I'm having a great time with this. I don't think I'm going to enjoy it as much as We Who Will Die, but they are completely different books, completely different genres. I think I'm going to enjoy this and rate it pretty highly just based on what I've read. I don't think it's going to beat out We Who Will Die though, just saying. But I'll keep you updated on this. This is my first Chelsea Curto book. Lots of people have recommended her DC Stars series to me, and I actually have a copy of her dark romance, In the Dark, on my shelf. But this is the one that caught my attention, so this is the one I'm diving in with, and I'm really happy with that decision so far. That is all of the books I have read in 2026 so far. Let me know how this felt. Does this feel like too many books? Would you rather see a monthly video, even if I only have like 4 books to talk about? This felt like a good amount to me. I feel like I got to speak to you enough about a lot of different books here. I'm doing quite a bit of traveling and summer things over the next few months, so I don't actually see my reading speed picking up anytime soon. But if it does, I might reintroduce back my monthly reading wrap-ups just so that there's something a bit more regularly for you guys. If you do want to see what I'm reading on my Instagram, I always update. I have a reading tracker, so every time I finish a book, I put it up on my stories, and I have a little saved highlights reel with them on. You can find my links to find me on any of the socials in the description of this video. Don't forget to leave me a comment before you go, letting me know what your book of the year has been so far. But other than that, I will see you in the next one.